Wait a minute. What on earth is this?
My husband, who had been on a 3-night, 4-day company trip. It's our 5th year of marriage, and although he had a wild side with frequent visits to strip clubs and flirting with other women, I thought he knew there was a line he shouldn't cross. So I wasn't worried even when he stayed overnight somewhere, but I was truly shocked when I organized the luggage he brought back. Inside his bag was a divorce paper. Everything was filled out, and all that was left was for me to sign. I didn't understand what he was thinking, but then another file caught my eye next to it.
Could this be a marriage license application?
Seeing something I shouldn't have, my heart suddenly started racing. Checking if my husband was still asleep, I slowly looked at the marriage license application as well. There was an unknown woman's name on it, and I hurriedly took photos with my smartphone as evidence. I decided to look up this woman's name on social media. Then I found a woman with the same name who was friends with my husband. From her posts, I learned that she had been in Hawaii for these 4 days. The same time my husband was supposedly on his company trip. And suggestively, there were posts of her with a man, arm in arm, hiding their faces in the photos. Looking at shoes and shirts, I instantly knew that man was my husband.
Cheating on me. This is absolutely despicable.
I was furious that my husband had crossed the line and betrayed me. What was all the support I had given him up to now for? This behavior, which felt like a mockery, made my blood boil. But since he had prepared all this, he must be planning to divorce me soon. So I thought I might as well submit this divorce paper right now. With that thought, I signed it on the spot and took it to a lawyer's office. Even when I got home, my husband was still deep in sleep. I packed my things and headed to a hotel before he woke up. My name is Ashley, and I'm 34 years old this year. I married my current husband 5 years ago and now work as a freelance designer while being a housewife. Since we don't have children, we've been able to live a comfortable life, just the two of us. I'm home.
Welcome back. How about we order takeout tonight? Actually, I've just come back. Haven't you prepared dinner? If you don't mind waiting a bit, I can start making something now. Aren't you hungry? I was thinking about ordering pizza. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. Make sure you pay though.
Sure, of course.
When we decided to marry, we both didn't want children, so we thought about both of us working. However, since my husband cared about appearances, he asked me to quit my job, so I continued as a freelance designer from home. Since we didn't have children, I wanted to work as much as possible to save money. Not only for our retirement, but also to have a nest egg in case something happened. Since my husband is just a regular office worker, we're not particularly wealthy. The first year was tough as I couldn't get much work, but gradually I earned trust, and now I make enough from my salary alone to live on.
I'm gonna take a shower then. Oh, I just realized we're out of beer. Could you go to buy some while I'm taking a shower?
Beer? Yeah, make sure it's cold, please.
Okay. Got it.
Before we married, my husband treated me like a gentleman, valuing me highly. But now, 5 years into our marriage, that's mostly gone. I've sometimes wished he'd care more about me, but it's not something I dwell on too much. That's why we've been able to maintain a certain distance while living as a married couple. The cracks in our relationship started showing when his visits to strip clubs came to light. He said he was going to a pub with his colleagues, but came home at 11 p.m. with them in tow. I had been feeling sick all day and had been bedridden. I had told my husband about it, but he went out drinking anyway, which disappointed me. Given my condition, I guess I must have given off a hostile vibe.
Hey! Bring some booze! I'm not done drinking yet. What? What are you doing? Do you know what time it is?
Come on, everyone's here, so get the drinks ready. It's the least you can do to entertain my colleagues who came all the way here. Don't embarrass me.
We only have 4 beers left, you know?
My drunk husband was about to start drinking at home with the colleagues he had brought over. However, it was already late at night, and his colleagues seemed ready to leave. I was feeling sick and wanted to get back to bed, but I couldn't stop my intoxicated husband.
We have to get up early tomorrow, so maybe it's time to call it a night? And lately, you've been making me pay for your strip club visits every week. I really feel bad for asking for more. It's late already.
He didn't react at that moment, but I was shocked to hear the word strip club. He always said that going to strip clubs was cheating, and he'd leave me if I ever went to a nightclub. That's why it irked me that he was the one going to strip clubs. But right now, handling this situation was the priority. Thinking that, I sent his colleagues home and carried my drunken husband to bed. He fell asleep immediately, and I went to sleep too. The next morning.
Can we talk?
Huh?
I have a headache from drinking too much last night. Can you not talk to me right now? You went to a strip club? You told me not to go to clubs. You said that going to nightclubs is cheating, remember?
What?
Are you accusing me of something? I know what I'm talking about. Last night, I checked last month's credit card statement. And it definitely shows you used it at a strip club, right? Don't you go snooping through my credit card statements. It's wrong to invade someone's privacy like that.
My husband yelled at me and left without touching the breakfast he was making. He probably never thought I would find out. But I had solid evidence. Some might think I'm making too much fuss over a strip club, but he himself had told me not to go to nightclubs. Yet he thinks it's okay for him, but not for me. I was still furious when he came home that day. However, he didn't return home that evening. He always lets me know if he will be home late, but he didn't contact me at all that day. Probably he knew I was mad, so he deliberately didn't contact me and went somewhere. I was even more irritated by his behavior, but I told myself getting angry wouldn't help and went to bed first. The next day, when I woke up, my husband had apparently come home late at night and was sleeping on the sofa.
Hey, about the strip club, we still haven't had a proper talk. And you didn't come home last night. Where were you? You could have at least called. My phone died yesterday, so I couldn't contact you. Suddenly, my boss wanted to go for drinks, and I couldn't say no because of work, you know? Well, if that's true, I can let go of yesterday. But what about the strip club?
As I spoke, he began to dodge the question. Probably he really went there and hadn't thought of any excuse. He might have thought I would forget over time. But I hate dishonesty. If it's wrong for one, it should be wrong for both. It's not acceptable for him to do whatever he wants but restrict me.
I remember you being very strict, saying even showing interest in someone else once counts as cheating. But is it okay for you to do anything? Don't you think that's odd?
That's different.
It was just networking for work. I didn't tell you because I thought it would upset you. A wife of a company employee should be a bit more understanding. Or do you want to jeopardize my position at work by being too controlling? Look, you told me to always refuse invitations from friends and prioritize your feelings over anything. I understand that maintaining workplace relationships is important, but then you shouldn't forbid me from going either, right? Don't you see the contradiction in what you're saying? What are you saying? Are you trying to justify going out because you have a husband?
I'm not saying I want to go out. I have no interest in flashy entertainment, and I've never wanted to go.
I'm not saying I want to go out. Don't twist my words. But you're talking as if you would go.
I'm not sure if he's deliberately changing the subject or if he's genuinely upset. I'm not blaming him for going to strip clubs. I'm just saying he should take responsibility for his actions and be consistent. My husband started getting defensive when I said this.
It's unthinkable for you to be interested in other men. Even if you don't act on it, just feeling attracted to someone else is cheating. See? You're so strict with me, but you think everything's okay for yourself? It's not right that everything is excused as work-related. If I said I wanted to go to a club because a client invited me, would you accept that? Come on, that's obviously not okay. Stop saying ridiculous things. You and I are in different positions. I don't actually want to go to a club. But I can't accept that it's okay for you but not for me. Why are you the exception? How many times do I have to say the same thing? Enough. Next time you say you want to go to a club, I'm really going to lose it.
With that, my husband glared at me and went back to his room. Despite explaining it many times, my husband refuses to understand. He avoids the essence of the problem and only says what he wants, which makes me sigh. He locked the room door, cutting off all contact from me, and in an instant. He didn't come out until the evening, but around 6 p.m. He dressed up a bit and left the house. Since we were in the middle of a fight, he didn't tell me where he was going. But given the time and his outfit, I doubted he left for a wholesome reason. With the strip club incident in mind, I couldn't help but suspect his actions. Maybe it's not just strip clubs anymore. I had no evidence, but a woman's intuition kicked in. However, no new evidence surfaced, and no major issues arose for half a year until one day.
Hello? Are you with your husband right now?
No, I'm alone. Why?
I haven't seen your husband since your wedding, so I'm not sure, but I just saw him walking with another woman.
What? Walking with a woman? What do you mean?
I don't know the details, just thought he might be cheating. I don't really know your husband well, so I just wanted to let you know. Maybe it's his sister or something.
I was shocked by the unexpected call from an old friend. My husband is an only child and doesn't have close female friends. But it was hard to believe he was cheating. There had been nothing suspicious about his behavior with women for half a year. Sure, he had secretly gone to strip clubs, but I thought he had learned his lesson after I found out. Today he said he was going out to drink with a friend after a long time. It's impossible he's cheating, but at the same time, I couldn't believe my friend was lying. My husband has a distinctive face, so there's almost no chance of mistaking him for someone else. It's probably true he was with another woman.
Didn't you take a picture? Like one showing both of their faces? It was too crowded, it wasn't the kind of situation where I could take a photo. But if your husband isn't with you, isn't that suspicious? I don't remember his face clearly, but I'm sure it wasn't a mistake.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. I'll check into it myself.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. My husband's a lawyer, so if you need anything, just ask.
My husband might be cheating. I didn't want to believe it, but the circumstances were suspicious. I decided to call him right away.
Hey, sorry for calling suddenly. Is now a good time? Of course. I told you I'm out drinking with a friend today, right? What's up? Just wondering, who is this friend? Someone I know? A classmate from high school. Did you really call just to check that? Stop making strange calls, okay?
He hung up a bit angrily. But instead of alleviating my suspicions, they only grew. After all, he had attended an all-boys school. If it was a high school classmate, it had to be a man, which didn't add up. However, my friend had seen him walking with a woman. Since the strip club incident, I couldn't trust my husband unconditionally anymore, and the thought that he might be cheating only grew stronger. That night, my husband returned home drunk.
Welcome back. Did you have fun?
Yeah, kind of.
But I'm tired today, so I'm going to sleep right away. All right, just make sure you change out of your clothes,
I said as I took his jacket from him. That's when I noticed a woman's perfume on his coat. Of course, it's not unusual for men to wear women's perfume. But it made me more convinced that what my friend had said was true. However, the scent of perfume alone wasn't enough to prove infidelity. Without concrete evidence, I couldn't confront him. I don't know the password to his phone, so I couldn't check it for more clues. A month went by without him slipping up.
I'm going on a company trip for 3 nights and 4 days. I'll be leaving the house to you. Got it. Don't worry about home.
His company is quite liberal with taking such trips. It wasn't the first time, and I didn't suspect anything. After 5 years of marriage, you get used to each other's presence. Although I cherished him as my life partner, I was pleased to have some time to myself. I spent a quiet night catching up on dramas I had recorded and reading a novel I had bought, enjoying my time alone. Then he returned from his business trip. He seemed tired and went straight to bed, and as I was organizing his luggage.
Wait a minute, what is this?
I was shocked to find a divorce paper in his bag. Everything was filled out except for my signature. He had never mentioned wanting a divorce, and there were no signs of it coming. We weren't the perfect couple, but we weren't at a breaking point either. I didn't understand his intentions, but then I noticed another file.
Could this be a marriage license application?
My heart raced as I saw something I shouldn't have. I checked if he was still asleep, and then I slowly looked at the marriage license application as well. An unknown woman's name was written on it, and I quickly took photos with my smartphone. The date was the only blank space, everything else was filled out. I decided to look up this woman's name on social media. I found a woman with the same name who was friends with my husband. Her posts revealed that she had been to Hawaii for these 4 days, the same time he was supposed to be on his business trip. And suggestively, there were posts of her with a man, arm in arm, hiding their faces in photos. From the shoes and shirts, I immediately knew that man was my husband.
Cheating on me. This is utterly despicable.
I was furious that my husband had crossed a line and betrayed me. What was all the support I had given him up to now for? This behavior, which felt like a mockery, made my blood boil. But since he had prepared all this, he must be planning to divorce me soon. So I thought I might as well submit this divorce paper right now. With that thought, I signed it on the spot and took it to a lawyer's office. Even when I got home, my husband was still deep in sleep. I packed my things and headed to a hotel before he woke up. That night, my husband called, but I ignored all his calls. There was nothing left to discuss with him, so I turned off my phone for the night. I didn't want to hear the voice of the man who betrayed me. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I took a quick shower and went straight to bed. The next day, when I turned on my phone, I saw over 50 missed calls and more than 30 messages from him, which made me feel even more frightened.
Hello. Like I said in my messages, isn't this a bit scary?
I don't know if he's obsessed with me, but it feels like he could do something out of spite. He seems angry that I filed for divorce without telling him, but it's not surprising from someone who cheated.
What should I do?
Since he had prepared both a divorce paper and a marriage license application with his affair partner, I had intended to quickly end things. I was shocked that he kept calling me persistently. Even as I spoke with a friend on the phone, the calls from my ex-husband continued, sending chills down my spine. I had this instinct that if I stayed, my ex-husband might attack me.
I'm currently at a hotel nearby, but should I leave? I don't think he'll find me, but just in case.
I don't know, but if he's that persistent, he might have put a GPS on your phone. What he's doing isn't normal.
So, what should I do now? Come over to my place. My husband is a lawyer and he can protect us if anything happens. Plus, it's scary to be alone, right?
Having someone to rely on in times of trouble is truly reassuring. As she suggested, I felt okay for now, but as time passed, my fear only grew. I decided to take up my friend's offer. I checked out of the hotel and headed to her house. Despite feeling uneasy about work, my priority was to cut ties with my ex-husband, so I changed my phone number that same day. After that, there was no contact and I didn't see my ex-husband for a while. Just when I thought everything was okay. As I was about to go out with my friend, there he was standing at the front door.
Did you file for divorce without telling me? What are you doing here? That's my line. Filing for divorce without any discussion? You must be out of your mind.
More importantly, how did you find this place? Stalking me to my house is creepy. My mind was filled with fear, and I could barely keep my trembling hands steady. Having my friend there helped me stay sane, but I was terrified to think what could happen if we were alone. I didn't know how he found the place, but I was frightened like never before.
That's none of your business. This is a marital issue. You stay out of this.
Since you're stalking around my house, it does involve me. Don't come any closer. If you do, I'll file a police report for stalking, okay?
This is just a marital dispute, and no third party should interfere. Hey, Ashley. I need to talk to you. Don't hide behind her. I'm scared of you. Why are you here? You prepared the divorce papers because you wanted to divorce me, right? I even found the marriage license application. So why are you angry at me? I just did the divorce you wanted. I don't understand why you'd hold a grudge.
I poured out my feelings desperately. Who knows if stepping on a landmine would make my ex-husband lash out. Unfortunately, my friend's husband was at work and not home. If my ex-husband became violent, I planned to scream loudly as a first resort. That was all I had decided. So, what do you want?
After betraying me, you think you can just get away with it? Plus, I never intended to divorce. Then why were there divorce and marriage papers? You were cheating behind my back, and you planned to divorce me, right? That was just because she was nagging me to divorce you. I never really intended to divorce you. I just prepared those papers to show her and keep her happy.
My ex-husband spoke as if he did nothing wrong. Almost as if he was the victim. But such excuses are unacceptable. Cheating is 100% his fault.
Still, you cheated. How are you going to explain that? Even if you didn't plan to remarry, how can you justify cheating on me? It was just a fling. I wasn't seriously in love with her, she was just someone to have fun with. A fling? You think that excuse is acceptable? You're mocking me, aren't you? Stop joking around.
My ex-husband was furious, but I was not at fault. No matter his excuses, he was the one who cheated. Moreover, I didn't write the divorce papers myself. Because of his cheating, I filed the divorce papers he had prepared. I shouldn't be blamed. My friend got angry on my behalf, and I was able to speak more assertively.
We need to have a proper discussion. Why do you make all the decisions on your own? No matter what you say, the fact that I filed for divorce won't change. If you come any closer, I'll report you as a stalker to the police. You. By the way, my husband is a lawyer. If you want to take this to court, be my guest. We said that and closed the front door. My friend suggested going to a buffet to cheer up, but I wasn't in the mood to go out anymore. Even after we entered the house, my ex-husband continued to linger at the front door for a while. What should we do? Should we call the police soon?
It's okay, I think. I just called my husband and he said he would come over right away. My friend reassured me. It seemed she had summoned her lawyer husband, which made me feel a bit safer. 30 minutes later, her husband arrived. The situation escalated quickly because my ex-husband was still at the front door. What are you doing here? This is someone's home, you know?
Huh? Who are you?
I'm the homeowner here.
My wife told me there's been a stalker outside our house. The police have been called, so please don't run away.
The moment her husband said that, my ex-husband fled. Whether he was startled by the mention of the police or not, he ran away at full speed. It was really pathetic, and I sighed, thinking about how I could have ever married such a person.
Thank you so much. Are you all right? Did he try to hurt you?
He almost did.
But, is it true you called the police? No, I said that to make him run away. I figured he wouldn't come near if he thought the police were coming. I've dealt with many people before, and those like him usually flee when they hear the words police or lawyer.
Her husband's firm words gave me some peace of mind. As he predicted, my ex-husband did not come near us again, and my anxiety slowly diminished.
Are things going smoothly? With the marriage certificate and the photos you posted on social media as evidence, we should win if it goes to court. Also, since they are both employees, they are likely to settle before it goes to trial.
Thank you, really.
It's no problem. This is my job. And we cannot forgive what your ex-husband did, it was betrayal.
Thank you, really.
I can't thank you enough.
Truly grateful, I felt stronger knowing I had such robust support. My friend's husband, being a lawyer skilled in divorce cases, also helped me with the process. Although the other party was reluctant until the end, eventually they paid the full amount of alimony, allowing me to completely sever ties with my ex-husband. Afterwards, I decided to move to the countryside to lead a peaceful life, reducing the chances of encountering my ex-husband. Even though I could have moved within the city, the thought of running into him was unbearable. Given that he had even tracked down my friend's house, it was possible he might find out where I moved next and start stalking me again, so I wanted to distance myself as much as possible. Moreover, as a freelance designer who primarily works remotely, it didn't matter where I lived. I'm heading to New York next Monday. Do you want to grab lunch?
That sounds great. My husband is free too, so let's go somewhere together. He's been worried about you being alone.
Can I come over then? I was thinking of bringing some wine as a gift. Even after starting my life alone, I had enough work to keep me comfortably busy and was enjoying my days. My friendship continued, and I had no issues with my social relationships. Contrarily, my ex-husband seemed to have only encountered troubles after our divorce. His affair was discovered at work, leading to a demotion. It turned out the woman he had an affair with worked in a different department at the same company. And their affair becoming known led to both of them receiving demotions and eventually breaking up. Having lost their money, connections, and jobs, they ended up lonely and struggling. Perhaps that was the price of betrayal, and they would spend their lives atoning for it. I chose to forget about them and focus on enjoying my single life. Fortunately, I wasn't struggling with work and didn't desire children. Rather than rushing into another marriage and potentially encountering someone like my ex-husband again, I preferred to live a meaningful life. After all, life is only once, and I didn't intend to waste any more time with someone who could betray me so easily. From now on, I hoped to associate only with people who genuinely cared for me. After not seeing him for a month, John just thrust a divorce lawyer's business card at me without even asking, "Are you okay?" or "How are you feeling?"
Divorcing a wife who doesn't work. Pay me $1,000 a month as alimony. Sounds good. Take care.
John chuckled as he said this. Standing beside him, Emily was wrapping her arm around his, wearing a similar smug expression. "Fine, let's divorce then." I said it so casually that John seemed a bit surprised, but he quickly shared a smile with Emily. Good thing John isn't much of a thinker. It makes my plan easier to execute. After the divorce papers got approved, I decided to start my revenge plan on both of them. I will make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm a 47-year-old illustrator. I also work as a children's book author. I just love drawing. I have 2 childhood friends, John and Emily. They're important friends to me, and John is also my husband. It all started when John asked me out as I was heading to a different college after high school. I was surprised. I'd thought he was into Emily. But I couldn't say no to a confession from John, whom I had secretly liked. After some thought and consultation with Emily, I accepted John's proposal. Emily's behavior had been a bit problematic since her teens, but she was still a dear friend to both John and me. However, Emily had a tendency to snatch other people's boyfriends and then dump them once they became obsessed with her, causing problems time and again. Her parents were concerned, so John and I often spent time with her to watch over her. John and I got married when we were 25. 4 years later, Emily brought her fiancé into our lives. His name was George, a professional working for a top-tier company. Nice to meet you, Sarah and John. I've heard so much about you. Looking forward to our future together. George was very polite and we all got along immediately. We would get together during holidays and vacations, taking trips or going on long train rides to enjoy some drinks. However, things started falling apart. After Emily got pregnant 2 years into her marriage. John and I originally had many siblings, so there was no worry about an heir, so we decided we didn't need children. Both of us loved kids, but weren't keen on actively caring for them. Besides, we loved our freedom to travel and enjoy drinks. We often found it heartwarming to see families with children, but it was never more or less than that. When Emily announced her pregnancy, John's attitudes started to change. He quit smoking because Emily said she couldn't stand the smell, and even offered to drive her to doctor's appointments using his vacation days. I warned him. George might get upset if you're always with Emily. But John argued back. You have work, don't you? She's our childhood friend and she's reaching out for help. You're heartless. I said. I've been buying things and helping where I can, but going with her to the obstetrician is crossing the line. When I said that, John frowned. And then, he glared at me. Why? Because Emily wants it, right? She says she's anxious about the checkup. I can't just let her go alone. If she's anxious, all the more reason for George to go with her, right? If you go with her every time, it's almost like you're the father of the baby in her belly, John. Jealous? You're not gonna get pregnant anyway, so what's the problem? He didn't take my concerns seriously, and instead started to snap, saying I was being annoying. We'd hardly ever had a fight during our marriage, but things changed when Emily got pregnant. Our arguments increased. And that didn't change even after Emily gave birth. In fact, John started spending even more time with Emily and their child, Emma. But when Emma was 6, an incident occurred. It had to do with the attendees of Emma's graduation ceremonies. The day before the graduation, John suddenly started rummaging through the closet. John, what are you doing? Have a meeting tomorrow? John's workplace had a casual dress code, but there was a rule to wear a suit during client meetings. So, he always kept a few suits ready, but they were all thrown on the bed now. No. Just trying to decide what to wear for the graduation ceremony. What? You're seriously thinking of attending the graduation? Yeah, George can't make it, Emily asked me. Wait. That's absurd, no matter how you look at it. I inadvertently raised my voice in denial. Immediately, John's face turned sour. I knew he occasionally picked Emma up from kindergarten, and I had done so myself when asked. Yet, it was nonsensical for a childhood friend, who wasn't even a biological parent, to attend a graduation ceremony. What, you still doubt me and Emily? I'm disappointed that you can't even help out. That's not the point. Anyway, I'm attending the graduation tomorrow, so iron a shirt properly. John said that and abruptly ended the conversation, leaving me behind and going to the bedroom. I had no choice but to call Emily. Hello, Emily? About tomorrow. Sorry about tomorrow. I'm borrowing John. But, won't George be upset about the graduation attendance? Sarah, what are you talking about? Obviously, I haven't told George that the graduation is tomorrow. I'll tell him after the ceremony. I was shocked to learn that George didn't know about the graduation schedule. Upon further questioning, it seemed that Emily hadn't informed George about any of the kindergarten events so far, and John had been acting as the father at the kindergarten, which made me dizzy with its selfishness. Wait a minute, Emily, isn't that extremely unreasonable? It's disrespectful to George, and just because he's a childhood friend. What's wrong, Sarah, you're scary. Well, see you tomorrow. Wait, Emily. I was trembling with anger at Emily, who unilaterally hung up the phone. Still, in the end, I ironed a shirt, prepared a tie, and the next morning, saw John off to Emma's graduation ceremony. Since then, Emily and John started going out more frequently, from once a month to once a week, and then to 3 times a week. Eventually, even George seemed to have some suspicions, and one day, while John and Emily were out, he visited our house alone. I'm sorry for visiting you late at night. There's something that's been bothering me. Is it about the 2 of them? Yes, I would like you to take a look at this. George showed me the GPS history he had installed in Emily's car. It showed that she had been staying at a hotel 3 times a week. All of those days, she was out with John, and just by looking at George's face, I understood what that meant. What do you want to do, George? I want to take revenge on those 2. Me too. I can't forgive them for betraying us after all this time. We started planning our revenge on them secretly. First, I started by increasing my income. Because I had been saving by doing housework and taking care of Emma, my income had drastically decreased. George switched to working from home. And when Emily and John would go out, he would bring Emma to my house, and we would take care of her together. Neither Emily nor John realized that we knew about their relationship, and we were able to gather solid evidence. Once we had collected enough evidence and were ready to take our revenge, we discovered a shocking truth about Emma. George and I struggled with the decision, but we both agreed that we didn't want to hurt young Emma, so we decided to wait until she was an adult to take our revenge. However, even though we decided to endure for 10 years, I was struck with a serious illness. I needed long-term hospitalization, and even at best, I wouldn't be discharged for at least 2 years. Although I could work from the hospital room, it was certain that I would have to reduce my workload. After informing George about the situation, I consulted John. However, John's reaction was no different from when we were making small talk. I'll visit you once in a while. I felt that John no longer had any affection for me, as he didn't even ask about my condition or the name of the disease. In reality, John only visited once a month or once every 2 months. And after Emma's 15th birthday, she started acting strangely. Although she used to visit me almost every day right after I was hospitalized, she became distant after her 15th birthday. However, neither George nor I could figure out why, and we were puzzled. Even when we asked Emma, she just said, "Don't worry about it." However, we ended up learning the reason from John, who rarely showed up. "Hey, it's been a while."
Yeah, it has.
John, who had completely transformed into a flashy appearance, walked in without even knocking. After not seeing him for a month, John just thrust a divorce lawyer's business card at me without even asking, "Are you okay?" or "How are you feeling?" "Divorcing a wife who doesn't work. Pay me $1,000 a month as alimony. That's the deal. So, take care," John said, grinning from ear to ear. Beside him, Emily wrapped her arms around John's with a similar expression on her face. "Fine, let's divorce then," I casually agreed, which seemed to surprise John for a moment, but he quickly exchanged smiles with Emily. It was good that John wasn't the type to think too deeply. That's why my plan worked so well. After receiving a notification that the divorce was finalized from John, I decided to start my revenge plan against the two of them. I will make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. I promptly started to take action. First, I contacted George to transfer hospitals. Then, I informed my lawyer that they would be mediating between the two parties from now on. George also began to act at the same time. He moved near my new hospital with Emma. And he started to visit me frequently. Emma still had a gloomy expression, but I was happy that she came to see me every day. Most of my belongings were already in the hospital room, so I told John to dispose of the rest. I didn't want to bring anything that the two of them might have touched into my new life. Once the hospital transfer and George and Emma's move settled down, I received a call from John. I had only left my seat for a few minutes, but my smartphone already showed 30 missed calls. I answered the phone, feeling exasperated. "What?" "Hey, what the hell is going on?" I could hear the voice of a troubled real estate agent behind John's panicked voice. I also heard Emily yelling, which made me feel sick. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "It's obviously about the house. Why do we have to move out?" John shouted at me as if it wasn't his fault at all. I replied to him coolly. "Obviously, because that's my house." "Huh?" John seemed to have completely forgotten, but the truth was, the house we lived in was a room I rented as a workspace when I started to make a living as a freelancer. At that time, I didn't have enough income to maintain 2 houses, and John didn't have enough income to live alone. So, he ended up moving into my place. Therefore, John had never paid the rent or utility bills for that room. Although I received some money from him for living expenses, it wasn't enough to maintain the place. Unfortunately, that room was already cancelled. It was far from the hospital I transferred to, so I had processed the cancellation the day after submitting the divorce papers. I didn't inform him because the real estate agent, who knew the situation, said they would contact him.
George and Emma suddenly disappeared, and our house was sold. What are we gonna do about our new house?
I don't know. Maybe stay in a business hotel for now? As I turned on the speaker and started working, John yelled in frustration.
Don't screw with me.
However, he seemed to remember something and started speaking in a more soothing tone.
Well, whatever. When will you transfer the money? We're running low on cash.
What are you talking about?
Huh? Don't mess around. I told you to pay $1,000, didn't I?
Oh, I don't recall agreeing to that. My nonchalant response was met with incoherent screaming from John on the other end of the phone. Apparently, he thought he could get money from me and had been squandering it. Even if he had $1,000 left, how did he plan to get by for the rest of the month?
Hey! Don't just stay silent, say something.
There's really nothing to talk about. My retort left John momentarily dumbfounded, but he soon started yelling again. Growing increasingly annoyed, I addressed John in as cheerful a tone as I could muster. Anyway, we're basically strangers now, so please don't contact me anymore. You'll hear from my lawyer.
Huh? Lawyer? Hey, wait a minute.
I hung up without listening to John's response. He tried calling back several times, but I ignored it, and eventually, the calls stopped. However, angry that I didn't answer, John started ignoring calls from my lawyer. He certainly had a childish side, but I never imagined he'd be the kind of person who didn't mind causing trouble for others. I sighed deeply at John's selfishness. A few months later, after a temporary discharge from the hospital, I visited John's parents' house. In front of me were John and Emily, both looking small and trembling.
You telling my parents is a low blow.
Oh, I just reported that we got divorced. John glared at me in response to my answer, but he shrank back under his father's stern gaze. Actually, I had a great relationship with my in-laws, even visiting and dining with them when John wasn't around. Despite being so well loved, I felt it was wrong not to share the details of our divorce, so I went to visit them.
Is it true that you're remarrying Emily?
Yes, it's true. Emily, Emma, and I are going to start over as a family.
What are you talking about? Your only family is Sarah. She's not my family anymore.
John's words made his father frown. With a look that seemed to say, "Give me a break," John shook his head a few times, then handed me a piece of paper. It was a bill from a nearby luxury hotel. What's this? It's the bill from the hotel we stayed at. John, acting as if it was obvious, pointed at the bill on the table, then suddenly collapsed.
Ow, what the heck, Mom? I didn't raise you to be like this.
My mother-in-law, gasping for breath, was met with a look of disbelief from John. Next to him, Emily wore the same expression.
Why are you so angry? It's just that the family is changing because I'm getting married. Plus, you'll have a grandchild. A blood-related one at that. Aren't you happy? You two didn't.
My mother-in-law, looking as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing, glanced at Emily, then turned her gaze to me. Both my in-laws understood that I didn't want children and still treated me as their own daughter. Of course, they treated Emily, my childhood friend, similarly, but there was always a boundary between a daughter-in-law and a friend. I remembered Emily often complaining about that. So, I was certain my mother-in-law wouldn't be happy about this situation, and Emily should have known it too.
You doted on Emma, right? It'll be your grandchild, so you'll be happy, right?
It's because she's a child I've known since she was little.
Oh, but half of her blood is from John, right?
Even after all this, Emily, showing no sign of remorse and acting as if she couldn't understand the problem, gave me goosebumps. At that moment, someone who had been silent until now spoke up.
Enough already. It's disgusting.
Huh? Emma? Emma, who had been playing with her smartphone in the corner of the room, spoke to Emily without looking up. The room fell into a stunned silence.
My dad is the only one I consider my father. Whether we're related by blood or not, he's the only one. But, you know, John has always been the one to attend your school events. I heard everything from Dad. How he was always informed of the event dates after they were over. How eventually, even the events themselves were kept from him. But Dad always said I was his daughter. So, I am his daughter, and I will never be yours.
Emma glared at Emily as she said this. Then, sitting beside me, she switched to a more concerned tone.
You know, when I found out about this, I thought you would hate me. But Dad said that wasn't the case, so I came here today.
Emma, I love you so much. You were so kind to visit me every day while I was in the hospital. I was really happy.
Sarah!
Emma, perhaps relieved of her anxiety, teared up and hugged me tightly. It might indeed be a child resulting from an affair between John and Emily. Yet, it's a child I've taken care of for 15 years, there's no way I don't have affection for her.
Speaking of which, Emily, weren't you curious why I wasn't surprised when I found out Emma is John's daughter?
Ah. Emily looked startled. Before she could speak, a new person entered the room.
We knew from the start.
10 years ago, actually.
George!
Emily started to panic when George suddenly appeared. Understandably so, as she had recently unilaterally demanded a divorce, citing irreconcilable differences.
I was shocked when you mentioned divorce.
Oh, and unfortunately, you're not divorced yet. The divorce papers are still here. Didn't you notice?
What?
I figured it wasn't in Emily and John's nature to confirm things, but I couldn't help but be stunned that Emily, despite the 100-day waiting period for women to remarry, hadn't noticed for months.
So, Emily is still my wife, and Emma is still my daughter.
Well, soon there won't be a wife, though.
Wait, what do you mean?
A 15-year-old can choose their parent.
That's not true. Emma wants to be with Mom, right?
Emily said that and looked at Emma. Emma frowned at Emily and held my hand. Emily was speechless at that and glared at me. Then, John suddenly burst into laughter.
So that's what it is. You two are together, huh? But too bad, isn't it impossible to live on George's salary alone? Can you stop making weird assumptions? Also, it seems George earns double the amount you think Emily knows about. Huh? It's probably a bluff, lol. Besides, it's impossible for you to work while dealing with your illness. You'll just die miserably somewhere.
This time I laughed at John's huge misunderstanding. John, seeing me suddenly start laughing, was getting frustrated.
You didn't know about my income, did you?
Huh? It's probably just a bit more than a part-time job.
No, it's different. My annual income is $500,000. Huh?
John's eyes and mouth were wide open in shock. Emily was also stunned. In fact, over the past 10 years, I had become a popular children's book author, and my income had skyrocketed from essays, interviews, and the like. Moreover, a film adaptation is planned soon, so my income is skyrocketing.
Liar! Oh, do you want to see this?
I said that and showed Emily my bank account screen. It clearly showed a large amount of money being deposited every month, and Emily was at a loss for words when she saw it.
Sarah, let's, make up. Huh? What are you saying?
Emily was furious at John's words, blinded by the money. I watched them blankly and then opened my mouth.
Well, if you want to get married, feel free. Oh, and I'll definitely take the compensation for damages. Sarah, wait, Sarah!
Ignoring John's words, I took Emma's hand. And after saying goodbye to my in-laws, I left their house. John originally worked at my father-in-law's company, but it was revealed that he was lying about going out for sales, and he was fired. My father-in-law planned to forcibly put him on a friend's fishing boat and work him to the bone. Working on a fishing boat was tough for indoor-loving John, and he contacted me several times, but each time I notified my father-in-law, and eventually, the calls stopped. Emily lost custody to George and got divorced. She seemed uninterested in John, who couldn't afford luxuries, and didn't seem to chase after him. She was disowned by her family and lived alone in a rundown apartment. She hadn't worked at all since getting married, and since she had always made others do things for her, she couldn't do anything herself, and there were hardly any places that would hire her as a full-time employee. Still, she had to pay for her living expenses and child support, so she worked multiple part-time jobs and barely made ends meet. After entering a high school, Emma worked hard every day to study abroad and go to a prestigious university overseas. Being originally diligent, her dream is to translate my picture books and deliver them to children all over the world, which makes me happy. As for me, my picture books are selling well, and I am receiving more and more offers for anime adaptations and merchandise. My illness is also progressing well, and although I am still hospitalized, my doctor recently told me that I might be able to leave the hospital next year. And one more thing, George and Emma come to visit me every day. Actually, George recently confessed to me, with remarriage in mind. I haven't given my answer yet, but I can't help but have feelings for him, who said he wants to live together when I leave the hospital. While thinking about what to answer, I work on my picture books every day. Hoping for a happy future for us, I weave stories again today.
Your father and mother are in critical condition. You need to cut your trip short and come home immediately.
I pleaded desperately to Tyler. But Tyler's response was heartless.
I'm on a trip with my colleagues. Handle it on your own. You're probably exaggerating anyway, right? I'm busy, so I'm gonna hang up now. Later. Hold on a second.
I tried to reach out to Tyler, but he hung up on me. 2 weeks later. When Tyler came home without any remorse, I spoke up.
Both their funerals are over.
What? Tyler froze with a puzzled look on his face.
What do you mean by both their funerals? Are you trying to play some sick joke on me?
He asked me frantically.
It's not a joke. Didn't I call you 2 weeks ago that your father and mother were critically ill?
I answered Tyler's question.
But why so suddenly?
Tyler was at a loss for words. My name is Jessica Atkins. I'm 56 years old and a full-time homemaker. I used to work in the administrative department of a major company, but I left the job when I got married. I met my husband Tyler during college. When I became a college student, I joined the tennis club. The reason was simply because a friend invited me. I had never played tennis before. I just wanted to have fun and make friends. That was the feeling when I joined with, but reality was different. At that time, Tyler, who was the head of the tennis club, was a strict guy aiming for national tournaments. For Tyler, it didn't matter whether you had experience or not. It was all about skill. Every day, Tyler would relentlessly serve the ball during practice, and if you couldn't return it, he'd berate you. Being a novice, I couldn't even make contact with the ball using my racket. And Tyler would scold me for it.
Jessica, are you kidding me? You're just in the way. Go pick up the balls or something,
Tyler said, effectively kicking me off the tennis court. I felt so humiliated by Tyler's insults. I was always relegated to just picking up balls, barely ever holding a racket. Out of sheer frustration, I practiced my tennis swings and form even at home. Perhaps my hard work eventually paid off. One day, as usual, Tyler served the ball, but this time, I managed to powerfully return it. Tyler, seemingly having expected me to miss, stared in shock. But in the next moment, he exclaimed,
Jessica, that was incredible,
with the biggest smile on his face. It was in that instant that I unexpectedly fell head over heels for him. After that, Tyler continued to be strict, and I kept trying to keep up with his intense training regimen. And then, one day after some time had passed, it was at an evening out drinking with friends. In our group, we have a get-together once a month. The purpose is to deepen our friendships, even outside of our group activities. On the way home from one of those gatherings, I happened to be alone with Tyler. Out of the blue, he confessed his feelings to me. I've fallen for you, Jessica. I want us to be together. I was taken aback. Tyler had never shown any signs of affection towards me. But I had feelings for him too. So, I replied,
I like you too. Let's give it a shot.
That marked the beginning of our relationship. Tyler wanted to keep our relationship a secret from the club members, so as not to affect the team morale. Still, I was so in love with Tyler back then, I was just happy to be with him. We continued dating even after we both graduated from college, and we got married when I was 26. At Tyler's request, I left my job upon our marriage. I'll always be by Tyler's side from now on. Back then, I was head over heels, daydreaming about a dazzling future with Tyler. 30 years have passed since Tyler and I got married. In the early days, we went on frequent dates and were very close. But, after 30 years, things had become somewhat routine. Even I stopped caring as much about my appearance as I used to. Back in my 20s, I used to wear trendy clothes and was pretty fashionable. Every time I went on a date with Tyler, I remember putting on a full face of makeup. But look at me now. As long as I'm dressed, I don't much care about coordinating outfits. I've grown to love loose skirts with stretchy elastic waists more than those with zippers. Now that I'm a stay-at-home wife, I rarely see other people, so I go barefaced from morning till night. I can't even recall the last time I wore makeup. Some might think I've let myself go. Comparing to my 20s, my body has changed quite a bit. I was fairly slim back then, but not anymore. I've put on weight and now resemble the before pictures you see on weight loss shows. Maybe this change in appearance is one of the reasons our relationship has become routine. Gradually, I feel like Tyler's view of me has shifted from wife to mom. Even though I'm not his mother, he occasionally jokes, "Mom, can I have another coffee?" By the way, my mother-in-law is still around and lives in an apartment about a 10-minute walk from our house with my father-in-law. So, we live close by but separately. My in-laws are wonderful people and always show concern for me. Because they are so caring, I wanted to be there for them, so I visited them often. But lately, my in-laws' health has been declining. My father-in-law has been battling a serious illness, and the doctors say there's not much more they can do. Tearfully, my father-in-law told my mother-in-law and me, "I want to spend my last days at home." So, he was discharged from the hospital and is now receiving palliative care at home. Looking after my father-in-law on her own, my mother-in-law seems exhausted and her expression has darkened. Being a stay-at-home wife, I help with my father-in-law's care almost every day, but living with him must be tough for my mother-in-law. "It's hard, Jessica. Just for one night, could you stay with us?" she asks with a vulnerable expression. "I'm sorry. Tyler comes home at night." It hurt, but I had to turn my mother-in-law down. "I see." Upon hearing my refusal, my mother-in-law murmured with a look of despair, "Every night, I have to take care of Tyler. Tyler is quite the dominant husband and doesn't lift a finger to help around the house. He just throws his dirty socks anywhere. Of course, dinner has to be ready and warm by the time Tyler gets home. Leftovers are absolutely out of the question. If he finds out, there's no telling how much he'll lash out. Once, I couldn't get home in time for Tyler's return because I was taking care of my father-in-law. The moment I got home, Tyler, with a face as red as a beet, yelled at me, "You should prioritize me over my dad. I'm your family, remember?" I wanted to point out that my father-in-law is also his family, but I kept quiet. Because if I had argued, Tyler would have just shouted even louder. Because of things like this, I always have to prioritize Tyler. Every day feels so constricted. Being a stay-at-home wife, I feel guilty and can't stand up to Tyler. I couldn't help my downcast mother-in-law, and could only look at her with concern. Lately, Tyler's been coming home late a lot. And Tyler never lets me know. Sometimes he even comes home on the last train. Today too, Tyler got home past midnight. "I'm back!" Tyler greeted me cheerfully. His face was red, and he seemed a bit tipsy. "Did you go out drinking again? You've been coming home late a lot lately," I said, holding the bag Tyler handed me. "It's my money, and I'll spend it however I want. You're just a stay-at-home wife, so you should just obey me," Tyler retorted gruffly. "But don't you think it's too frequent? Who are you going out with every time?" Their families might be worried too. I hesitantly asked Tyler. Maybe Tyler's been forcing people to go drinking with him. Tyler's been with the company for a long time and holds a position of authority. It's hard for most to say no to someone like that. Tyler then replied with a smug smile. It's all good. I just always drink with the same coworker. Plus, the guy lives alone and is single. He's always happy when I buy him a drink. Tyler said, smugly. I couldn't say anything back, being a stay-at-home wife without much say in matters. Then, I had an idea and decided to talk to Tyler about it. Could you let me know in advance when you're gonna go out for drinks? Your mom seems really stressed out. And your dad's condition isn't great either. I'd like to be there for them as much as possible. But Tyler laughed off my concerns. No can do. When I go out depends on my mood. Besides, Mom will handle Dad's situation. Jessica, you should be all in for me. As I was taken aback by Tyler's harsh words, he said. Instead of standing there, get the bath ready. You're so slow. With that, he quickly headed to the bathroom. Yes, I'm sorry. All I could do was respond like that. Then, one day, Tyler suddenly told me, I'm gonna go on a trip for 2 weeks from next week. While I stood there in shock, Tyler cheerfully flipped through a guidebook, pondering what he'd eat. And he was planning to go to Australia. Regaining my composure, I asked Tyler, why the sudden international trip? What about your job? And I don't even have a passport? Tyler seemed a bit annoyed with my questions. I got a bonus, so I thought I'd just go for it. I've already requested PTO from work. And I'm not going with you, Jessica, so you don't need a passport, right? Tyler answered nonchalantly. I haven't even had a proper honeymoon since we got married. Who are you going with? I asked Tyler. Even for day trips, Tyler would say it's a waste of money and never took me along. Now this sudden international trip? It seemed suspicious. I stared intently at Tyler. Tyler retorted, I'm going with a guy from work. Now, get dinner ready already. I realized it would be challenging to press him further. Tyler probably wouldn't answer me if I continued to ask, and might even snap at me. Though I felt frustrated, I reluctantly started preparing dinner. And that day, Tyler left for his trip early in the morning. But by noon, I found myself frantically calling Tyler. What do you want? I'm about to board a plane for an international trip. Read the room. Tyler snapped at me as soon as he answered. My in-laws are in critical condition. Please cancel your trip and come home immediately. I pleaded with Tyler desperately. If he hadn't boarded the plane yet, there was still time. At least, that's what I thought. But Tyler's response was cold. I'm on vacation with my colleague. Handle it yourself. You're probably exaggerating anyway. I'm busy, gonna hang up now. Bye. Wait a second. I tried to reach out to Tyler, but he hung up anyway. No matter how many times I called back, he didn't answer. You'll regret this, I whispered to myself. 2 weeks later. I'm back. Tyler walked in cheerfully, carrying a large suitcase. I approached the unapologetic Tyler and said, both their funerals are over. What? Tyler looked puzzled, as if he didn't understand what I was saying. What do you mean by both their funerals? Are you playing some kind of sick joke? Tyler, clearly panicking, questioned me. I sighed deeply at Tyler's flustered demeanor. It's no joke. Don't you remember I called you 2 weeks ago telling you your parents were critically ill? I replied to Tyler's question. But, why all of a sudden? Tyler trailed off, unable to find the words. And I found myself sitting on the floor. When I went to visit your parents, they both had collapsed with pale faces. I called an ambulance in a panic, but the doctor said they were both in critical condition. Your dad needed care for a while now, and your mom had been looking unwell recently. Just a series of unfortunate events, I guess. I explained to Tyler, with a detached tone, about the events leading up to my in-laws' critical condition. I'm truly heartbroken that my in-laws ended up like this. I was visiting my in-laws' house almost every day and still couldn't save them in time. To this day, I regret not going to their place sooner. But right now, I'm just so angry at Tyler. My in-laws are his real parents. Yet, Tyler chose himself over them until the very end. No matter how much I pleaded, Tyler always prioritized himself. Remembering the tired look on my mother-in-law's face just makes me even angrier at Tyler. Tyler, with a grimaced face, remained silent. He probably can't come to terms with reality. I decided to press Tyler further. It's your fault, isn't it? Choosing a trip with your colleague over your own parents. Did you enjoy your vacation? I asked Tyler with a sly smile. But Tyler just stayed silent. So, I decided to prod a bit more. Well, I guess a trip with your lover is fun, right? 2 weeks seems a bit long though. When I said that, Tyler, as if resigning himself, began to talk. You knew? Yeah, I've been seeing Baker from work. She's over a decade younger than you, and she comforts me. It seems Tyler was indeed cheating. His recent late nights were probably because of his affair with this Baker. As I stayed silent, Tyler, thinking I had accepted his confession, began to talk more. Baker is nothing like you. She has a slim figure, is beautiful, and she has a job. You're nothing compared to her. Tyler was clearly proud of himself. Huh. Not caring at all, I responded nonchalantly. He seemed to forget he had asked me to become a stay-at-home wife after we got married. Then, as if he had an idea, Tyler made a suggestion. That's right. Now that my parents are gone and there's no one to oppose a divorce with you, and I can live here with Baker. So leave right now. I was flabbergasted by Tyler's words. Up to now, I'd been a stay-at-home wife, always deferring to whatever Tyler said. I had no regular income of my own, and part of me lacked the confidence to move out and support myself. But after seeing Tyler prioritize a trip with his mistress over his critically ill parents, I didn't want to be with him anymore. Fine, I'll leave right now. Goodbye. And with that, I packed a minimal amount of stuff and left the house. A week after I started staying at a budget motel, my husband Tyler called my cell. Hello? As soon as I picked up, Tyler jumped in. I can't find the checkbook at home. He sounded pretty panicked. However, I left all the statements under Tyler's name at the house. Of course, that includes the bank book where Tyler's salary gets deposited. The only checkbook I took is in my name. Did you check properly? As soon as I said that, Tyler shouted. It's the checkbook in your name. That account had a pretty good amount of money, right? It's a joint property, so half of it's mine, isn't it? After recklessly spending on trips and whatnot, I couldn't believe Tyler was now bringing up joint property. Holding back a heavy sigh, I calmly responded. The money in that checkbook is from gifts I received from my family and savings from when I was single. So it doesn't count as joint property, you know? Tyler, sounding frantic, replied. That's a problem. I nearly spent all of my last month's salary and bonus on the overseas trip. I thought I could cover the shortfall in our living expenses by withdrawing from your account. Up until now, I'd kept my checkbook in a drawer where Tyler could easily see it. I had no intention of hiding it from Tyler. So Tyler must have sneaked a peek at the balance. I've moved out, Tyler, so I have no idea about your living expenses. Maybe ask for an advance on your paycheck? I firmly declined Tyler's request. Then, I added, just to give Tyler a heads up. By the way, you might want to assume that there's hardly any inheritance from your parents. They were living on their pensions, and with the cost of your father's care, they were barely getting by. And you better clear out their rented apartment soon, or you'll be paying rent every month. My in-laws had been living in a rented apartment, barely making ends meet with the rent and the cost of caring for my father-in-law. My mother-in-law somehow managed to save and get by each month. I reckon my mother-in-law had her share of worries and stress. You're kidding. Tyler sounded shocked over the phone. So, I decided to give Tyler the final blow.
I have no responsibilities to help you out. You are on your own.
I declared cheerfully.
Why?
Tyler's voice was full of disbelief. Tyler is already struggling with money, and he's probably panicking. Moreover, he's lost my in-laws and has no one else to turn to.
I've already lost my real parents. How can you be so heartless? Are you some kind of monster?
Tyler cried out, venting his frustrations at me. Despite having kicked me out with no income, he seemed to have forgotten that. I have no sympathy for Tyler, who's lost so much. It's all Tyler's fault. So, I laughed and replied.
Well, duh. You cheated. Don't expect me to help you out after what you have done.
Hearing the word cheated, Tyler flinched.
I don't want to ask the company for the help. If the company finds out about Baker and me, it'll be a disaster.
Tyler's voice was shaky. But it was not my concern. I don't even know the face of Baker. It's you and Baker who did wrong in the first place, right? I challenged Tyler. I hope they both lose their social credibility. I've got nothing left to lose. Whatever happens to them, it's none of my business.
It's all my fault. Just help me out this time, please.
Tyler pleaded with a voice full of desperation. No way.
You're gonna regret this big time.
I told him that and ended the call with Tyler. Tyler and I eventually got divorced. At first, Tyler was reluctant to agree to the divorce, mainly because of the financial issue. But in the end, he was persuaded by the lawyer I hired and signed the divorce papers. Tyler always acted arrogant in front of me and my in-laws, but was very submissive in front of others. He's the kind who's all bark and no bite. That's probably why Tyler couldn't stand up to a professional like the lawyer and ended up being told what to do. Our properties will be split equitably. All thanks to my lawyer. Tyler had almost exhausted his savings on a trip abroad with Baker. So, he was tight on cash. My lawyer guessed that Tyler will be very uncooperative. But in the end, I was pleased with the situation. Now, about what happened afterward. It seems Tyler is living paycheck to paycheck, having difficulty to support himself. On top of that, he had additional expenses like cleaning out and paying rent for the rental apartment of my in-laws. And apparently, he got dumped by Baker. Initially, Baker was very ambitious and got close to Tyler for her own career advancement. But affair was exposed right after we got divorced. Tyler got demoted, and it seems Baker got transferred to a remote branch. If Director Adkins is getting demoted, I don't need him anymore. Thanks for everything. That's what was said, and Tyler got dumped. Though Tyler got demoted, he didn't get transferred within the company. So, he seems to be feeling out of place and uncomfortable. Now, being dumped by Baker and all alone, Tyler has contacted me through my lawyer.
I messed up. I broke up with Baker, so I want another shot with you.
That's what I heard through the attorney. Since I've already blocked Tyler's calls, it seems like his only option is to relay messages through the lawyer. Knowing Tyler's usually timid nature, the fact that he's pleading with the lawyer like this tells me he's really backed into a corner. On top of that, he's been saying things like, I'm seriously out of money right now. Can you lend me some from your savings back when you were single? Please! Making demands that don't benefit me in the slightest. Even the attorney seemed taken aback by this and relayed it to me with a chuckle. I guess Tyler's gonna have a tough life from here on out. Frankly, I hope he continues to struggle and squirm. By the way, I got in touch with Baker through the lawyer, and she responded in a very respectful way. I was told, through the lawyer, that she said,
When I was with Mr. Tyler, my expenses were quite low, so I had fun with his money.
But it did not last long. Please tell her I deeply regret everything. It seems she was never really interested in Tyler, just his position. Tyler was head over heels for Baker, and to see him ruin his life over it, it's quite pitiful. Thinking of Tyler's misfortune made me smirk. Since then, I've decided to get back to work. Would you believe it, I took a part-time job at a convenience store. It's my first time in customer service, but it's surprisingly fun. I was initially worried about being on my feet all day. But once I started, time just flies, and it's a blast. Beyond working the register, there's ordering products, frying snacks, and a lot more to convenience store work. I even get to use my housekeeping skills with the cleaning tasks. I've heard from the manager that if I work hard, I could become a permanent employee. Apparently, there's been others like me who made the transition. Being in my 50s is like being at the halfway point in life. Being divorced, I initially thought my future was bleak. But even at this age, I'm discovering new things and having a ball. I want to keep looking forward and keep on moving. That's how I feel right now.